that. We're here at Exano. We're excited to talk about Trellis leadership, structuring short-term initiatives to structure your church's long-range dreams. As you may know, our vision is to help churches create breakthrough clarity with church teams to realize their vision. And today we're going to be talking about that interplay between your long-range vision and your short-range strategic initiatives, and how to align those strategic initiatives with your long-range dreams. I am Mike Gammill. I'm your host today. I'm a senior lead navigator. I've been with the Exano team since 2012. And so it's great to be with you all this morning. I'd love for you to jump on to fully engage your time this morning. We'll be about 40 to 45 minutes. Go ahead and focus. Put down your phones, your social media, your email. I know you're following the Twitter feed to see what's happening, but just go ahead and just all that stuff will wait. I know it will. And join and hit the chat with active dialogue. And the importance of that can't be understated because this very webinar, this topic, emerged from a dialogue that we had on a webinar about 3 months ago, where we were talking about top-down leadership versus bottom-up leadership. And so there was a good dialogue on the webinar. And so we decided to form a whole webinar topic just around this. And so as we go through, I would love for you to hit the chat with questions, and I'll go ahead and I'll be monitoring that chat feed, and we'll be kind of addressing those questions as we move along. So to get us started with that chat, if you're able, I'd love for you to share your first name, your city, and your favorite Thanksgiving dish. And so for me, that certainly is, my name is Mike. I'm in Bozeman, Montana, and my favorite Thanksgiving dish is my wife's chocolate chip pie. It's amazing. And so go ahead and hit that. We've got Bob from Charlotte. We've got, I know all of you are kind of jumping on, so go ahead and hit that. We've got from Michigan, Ypsilanti, Michigan, turkey. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, keep it coming. The stuffing, right? So as you guys just kind of warm up there and keep that coming, we're going to jump in. The core challenge that we want to address today is how can we align short-term and long-term visionary goals, particularly in sub-ministry areas. So imagine if you have this long-range vision where you're headed as a church that's 5 years away, 3 years away. What do we do today in our sub-ministry goals? So you may be children's ministry or women's ministry or the small groups ministry or the worship ministry. How do you plan within those small goals when you have this long-range strategic initiatives? So that's the topic. That's what we're going to chat about. So be thinking about your questions. And first thing I want to jump into is some future planning myths. So these are some 3 myths that I find commonly that just kind of plague teams. And so I want to hit those right off the top, because if we don't get these out of the way, they're going to disrupt your ability to align short-range initiatives with long-term dreams. The first one is that strategic planning is top-down. What is it? The top-down language typically means that someone on the top, like a leader or a senior pastor, or maybe it's a council chair, maybe it's a denomination, but someone up there is telling everyone else what to do. Now, that is a leadership command and control style. That is a thing, and that may be your environment. That, however, is not necessary for strategic planning. Strategic planning is not top-down. Strategic planning is planning from the future. And so if you're planning from the future, then you are strategic planning. Whether you're doing top-down or bottom-up, you definitely have an opportunity to do strategic initiatives and sub-ministry goals if you're all planning from the future. And so that's the key. Strategic planning is from the future. The second myth is that strategic planning disrupts innovation. Well, strategic planning can disrupt innovation if you let it, and if you create a culture again, of command and control, where the top is telling everyone what to do. This is really disruptive to innovation. Strategic planning can foster and cultivate innovation if you follow the right principles and practices, which we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. The last myth about strategic planning that I want to cover is that strategic planning replaces prayer. And this is the same as the other one, only if you let it. If we have the right strategic plan, it will drive prayer. It will fuel prayer, because we will realize as we aim towards that goal exactly where we need God's help. And the more clear we are about what our plan is and where we're headed, the more we'll recognize exactly those places where we need God to step in. We'll recognize those risks that we're taking that we need him to help with. We'll recognize those areas where we're just in over our heads, don't know what we're doing. And that drives us, and that should drive prayer. And so in this sense, I'll say, if your strategic planning is top down, but it's not from the future, if your strategic planning is disrupting innovation, if your strategic planning is disrupting prayer, then I would just really encourage you that it's time to recalibrate how you're doing strategic planning, because it should be from the future, but bottom up. It should be fostering and cultivating innovation, and it should be driving prayer. So just a few reminders as you guys are processing this information and thinking about your questions. Just a few reminders before we jump in. Spirit-led future planning for every church. If you're a church, your vision is your next destination in the reign of God. So this is not to get too theological or heady here, but as a church, we're the instrument of God's grace towards the world and towards his mission of God. We are that agent. We are that instrument. And so just with Jesus' vision was the kingdom of God. I'm using the language here, reign of God. That's exactly what our vision is too. And so your particularized vision is an expression of that. It's your place in that reign. And so it's your next step. A visionary plan shows the steps you need to take to be in confident submission to God's leading. And so as you look at your plan, as you look at your destination, you start to think about those steps. What steps has God called me to take? And so these steps should be a confident submission, or what I like to think about as a humble confidence, is this conviction that God's given us that I'm moving in the direction he's called me to move in. But there's a lot of things I don't know. And there's a lot of things he hasn't told me yet, or there's a lot of skills I haven't acquired yet. There's a lot of things our church hasn't arrived yet. And we're living in that already not yet tension of the kingdom of God. It's already here. We have access to God through Christ, and his kingdom is here, but also it is unraveling and unwrapping, and it's being consummated. And so we're part of that. And so your visionary plan shows you the steps you need to take. The third reminder is that a focused destination does not mean a fixed plan. So I know some of us who like to be orderly, we don't like it when the plans change. Well, with strategic planning and spirit-led future planning, the reality is that the plan informs itself, and we have to be adaptable. So as we fulfill the plan, we learn new things, we acquire new skills. And as such, we have to be ready to adapt the plan. We may even shift some priorities or shift initiatives or adopt new values along the way that help us to see, hey, my plan needs to adjust. And this last year, for those of you who know me, who are clients, I see a few clients in the room, they know that I'm a trail runner. And this last year, I had a big dream to run a big trail run. Well, I got injured along the way, and I had to change course. Now, it didn't disrupt my long-term plans, but it did disrupt the next year and a half. And so we have to be willing and able and ready to adjust and respond to the reality on the ground. That said, an adaptable mindset does not mean a lack of confidence. We can have 100% confidence and faith in Christ, in his coming reign, in our vision to have that reign and that humble submission. That doesn't mean that the adaptable mindset doesn't play against that. it really is, it feeds into it. The more confident we are in our destination, the more adaptable we can be in the moment. A humble conviction leads with questions. A humble conviction and that certainty of God's reign asks questions of how can we do better? What can we do different? How can we reach the people God's called us to reach even better? So that humble conviction is really able to ask questions and to receive questions and to receive challenges. And it sees those as ways to build rather than to defend authority. And then finally, failed experiments are the heartbeat of innovation. And we're going to talk a little bit later about why this is hard for the church. But in innovative cultures, experimentation and learning from experimentation is the heartbeat. It's a constant desire to progress and to get better and to go to the next step. And really, the truism for innovation that it's about the journey, not about the destination. For innovation, that's true. Now, in our case, it is about the destination too, but it's the destination along the way. We as Christians get to enjoy a tabernacling God who goes with us along the way. And so as we do these failed experiments, we're learning something from each one. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. And so here's 7 questions for your strategic initiatives that we can talk about. So first of all, the first question is, do we agree on a shared future? And so there can be a tension that exists between a sub-ministry goal, say the children's ministry, the women's ministry, and our long-range goal. The first thing we have to ask is, are we going in the same direction? And what can happen when we have a shared vision of the future is that we haven't really fully replaced the old vision. And so what can happen is that we operationalize a vision as it matures, and that operation becomes a habit and an instinct. And a new vision, particularly a new or a younger vision, hasn't operationalized itself yet. So the old vision still lives in our memory. It's echoing through the walls. And sub-ministry teams, they're still running that play. So that play might be the old vision of more kids every week, or a higher quality level, whatever that vision is from yesterday tends to echo. And so the first question when we're trying to get aligned, or when we feel like there's tension, first question we need to ask ourselves is, wait, are we heading are we heading the same place? So if, for example, your vision were to create a robust, integrated generational ministry where folks of different generations are mentoring and discipling each other. I'm not saying that's your vision or that it should be, but imagine if it were. You can see how that would change the goals that a youth ministry might have. So for the youth ministry, in an old mindset, it might have been, hey, we need to grow every week. The new vision might say, hey, we still want to grow every week, but the real goal is to integrate. And so how about we create opportunities to integrate our youth with our seniors? And now that's just an example of aligning a shared future. And sometimes those conversations need to happen. And the adoption of a vision doesn't just happen when one person tells another. It's a two-way dialogue and a two-way conversation. And so sometimes those conversations need to happen, and we need to make sure we're on the same page. The second place where strategic initiatives get disaligned is where we don't agree on where we are now. And so that's just the question. Hey, do we agree where we are on the state of things? What is the health of the ministry? What are the growth areas? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What needs to change? These are the fundamental elements of strategic planning. Where do we want to go? And where are we now? And so if we disagree on either one of those things, we're going to have misalignment with our goals and with our approach towards ministry. And so we need to agree on a shared future. We need to agree on where we are. And then once we get those two worked out, the next question we need to chat about as a team is you need to ask yourself if you're trying to optimize or if you're trying to innovate. These are very different postures. Optimization is about order and stability. Optimization is about getting the most from the pieces that are on the table. There are certain personalities that love to optimize. Very good at it. They like to do it. And I'll say that most church systems lean towards optimization. On the other side are the innovators. Innovators aren't trying to get the most from a system. They're trying to create new opportunities within a system. Typically, with a new vision, there is a need for greater innovation and a little bit less of a need of optimization. And so what we find is that as you go and you look at your own sub-ministry teams, or maybe you're overseeing a team that has sub-ministry goals, just do a quick check. Are we in an optimization mindset, or are we in an innovation mindset? And how can we be in the right place? Because there's a time and a place for both, for either or. And so you have to really think about what's appropriate for your context. Again, optimization is about maximizing your current approach. This is more about tweaks and changes. Innovation is about taking risks to do something new, to create new opportunities. And so that's can have a lot higher failure rate, but really you're doing you're doing 10 things so that one can succeed. They're different mindsets. It's really hard for one team to do both things at the same time. The fourth question is, are our ears to the ground? This is a metaphor. So the metaphor is, are we listening? Are we listening to our folks? Are we really paying attention to how things are growing? So if we think about this trellis metaphor that we introduced at the beginning, and we think about the church as this grapevine that's growing, hearkening back to John 15, the vine grows from the ground. And in this case, this metaphor, this ground is the work of God in the people of God. The work of God does not happen just in a leader's mind or a leader's brain. It really is the Spirit of God working in the midst of the people. And as leaders who are leading the church, are we paying attention? Are we listening? Are we making sure are we validating that our plans are resonating and capturing and really leveraging the work of God in people's hearts and minds? And are we asking them, or are we empowering them to experiment? I'll talk about that more in just a little bit. But are we listening? Are we being leaders who listen? The fifth question is, are we saying no often enough? So as we move to do new strategic initiatives, we have to let go of old ones. And sometimes we have to let go of old programs. And again, we'll talk more about this in just a second, but are we saying no as often as we're saying yes? And I know that those aren't equal things. You can say yes more than you can say no, but sometimes you need to say no more than you say yes to create space for new growth. Question number 6, is there value of excellence slowing us down? This is particularly challenging for our larger churches who have more of a performance reality or a deliver reality. And this is just a form and function of a larger gathering, that there is a style and there is a quality that is expected and required for things to succeed at that level. And the issue here, particularly for strategic initiatives, particularly innovation, particularly new things, is that we have to try things to figure out what works. And if our value of excellence gets in our way, we may not try enough things to figure out what's working. And so now this isn't me saying you shouldn't have quality ministries. Don't hear that at all. This is me saying that as you take on strategic initiatives, there's a learning curve. And if we aren't able and ready to fail and learn from the failure, then it's going to stop us from innovating and stop us from trying new things. So the 7th question here is, are we rolling out unproven approaches? This really connects back to the 6th thing, and it's kind of the other side of the story. Number 6 there is, hey, are we trying fast enough? Are we doing too focused on getting everything right the first time? But then 7 is the opposite side of the realities. Are we rolling out programs before they're ready, like mass scale? In the tech world, we talk about taking the solution to market, scaling it up. And this is kind of that idea is, hey, are we piloting a program and figuring out how it works and how it functions in our context, or are we just rolling it out to the whole church? There's a lot of wisdom in really rolling things out in appropriate, small manner, learning from that, refining it before you take it church-wide. So let's jump on to our 7 keys to strategic initiatives. So really, here are the opposite side of those questions. And so you have your 7 questions and you have your 7 strategic initiatives. Number 1, we need to plan from a clear, shared future. So gather your team together, and for your sub-ministry goal, take a look at your corporate. If you have a clear, shared vision for your whole church, say, hey, how does this apply to us? How are our initiatives and where we're headed? How does this align with where the church is headed? How can we integrate the church's vision into our vision so that we're going in the same direction? And so just number 1, we need a clear, shared future. And we need to let the echoes of the past get through the halls so that we have a new vision that's starting to control how we dream and how we imagine and how we see that coming future. So number 1, plan from a clear, shared future. Most people think the future is the ends and the present as the means, whereas in fact, the present is the ends and the future is the means. This is the key to strategic planning, that I'm using the future to help me plan the present moment and my present behaviors and activities. And if I can change my present, then that really is the deliverable. The present is the deliverable, but that's going to create a new reality in the future that becomes a self-reinforcing cycle as I continue the strategic planning process. So create a plan from a clear, shared future. The more clear you are about who your church is, your present condition, the future the Spirit is leading you to, the more innovative and daring you can be in the present moment. So number 2, create a shared clarity about your present. So this is where we come to an agreement about where we are as a team in our sub-ministry. What's working? What's not working? What are our opportunities? What are our threats? If you've probably done a SWOT analysis with your team before, that's a great way to get on the same page. And don't avoid conflicts or disagreements. Engage them, lean into them, learn from those ways that other people see your reality differently than you do. So create this shared clarity where you really know, hey, here's what we're really good at, we need to leverage. Here's a weakness that we might ignore for a while, but here's a new opportunity we're going to try to create. But you really want to get really clear before you create solutions on where you are right now. So we need to create that shared vision of the future. We need to create a shared clarity about our present. People love following confident, optimistic leaders. This is proven in leadership literature. This is research is done on this. People like to follow optimistic people, but don't be blind to your realities and shut down a discomfort over needed improvements. So this is a shadow side of confidence and optimism, that we don't like to hear bad news, or that we shut down questions or we take them as personal attacks. So have that optimism, have that confidence, but don't turn a blind eye to the things that need to get better, because it's really that holy discontent that really drives and spurs innovation and creativity and improvements. So create a shared clarity about your present. Number 3, calibrate progress and order to your situation. Progress and order need each other, but they don't always get along. Order fosters stability and optimization. We talked about this under that third point, that third question. Order is where churches lean towards order. We lean towards stability. We lean towards stasis. And I will say that as we engage a rapidly changing context, all of our churches, wherever you are in the US, you're in a rapidly changing context. As you engage that as a church, that rapidly changing context is going to influence and impact the viability and the value of your ministries. The challenge you have, in part, that we all face, is that we have a church culture that is craving stability because the world is so unstable. They want the church to be stable. So you want to create that stability with a shared vision, a shared mission, and most importantly, shared values, so that you can create space to innovate your strategy. You create space for change by having this shared core sense of, hey, we are advancing towards the reign of God. Our goal is that we are closer in humble submission to God than ever before. That's our goal. Every day we get better. Now, that's our vision. Our mission is to make disciples. That's what we do. We don't do anything else. We make disciples. Our values are the word of God, etc. You get the sense here. You want to create that core stability, preserve what needs to stay the same, so that you can stimulate growth and change around the edges, so that people feel that stability, but also give you the freedom to really innovate and make changes where those changes need to be made. And so for a lot of our churches, we need to lean more towards progress and let go a little bit of the strings on order. And so we see progress fosters innovation and expands future potential. So if that's where you are, if that's where you're leaning, that means we need to let go a little bit of optimization and lean in towards creating that new new opportunities through progress. But of course, every situation is different, and so you need to contextualize it to your context. Number 4, we need to listen to God's people. And the idea here is, and this really is the key in a lot of ways to this whole webinar and this whole problem with top-down leadership. And that was the question that launched this webinar was, is this top-down leadership, is strategic planning? Can you do that? And the problem with top-down leadership for innovation is you only have one person experimenting. You only have one person ideating. But just imagine with me. Imagine if you had a whole fleet of individuals who are doing micro experiments about the mission of God in their own contexts, in their homes, with small groups, with their neighbors, in their workplaces, in school. Imagine if they were equipped, empowered, and released to be, essentially missionaries, and then they were reporting back what they were learning. Here's what the culture is needing. Here's what people are responding to. Here's what's helping me grow in my faith. And imagine if we were able to have all that input and have that inform our approach to ministry. And so that's number 4, is listen to God's people. Equip, empower, deploy everyday Jesus followers to innovate and share from their experiments. The more we can deconstruct the command and control model on the ground for our folks, the more they're going to feel empowered to do that ministry. We're not looking for them to create official church programs. We're looking for them to really engage in the mission of God in their lives. And the more they do that, the more we receive impact, input and data, the more we are able to really process that and incorporate that into the learnings of the church, so that as we have a shared approach towards ministry, we can focus on those things that are really working and where God's working, and we can be more adaptable because the ideas are coming from our folks, not just a single leader who sometimes has great moments of genius, which I know everyone on the call has many great moments of genius. But just imagine if we empowered all of our people to do that and we incorporated that into our plans. Number 5 is clear the way. Remove what's not achieving your mission to create room for new growth and to feed what is. And so as we go back to this trellis illustration, we are reminded of John 15, where Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. And he talks about branches that don't produce. And there's this word clean or clear out the dead wood. This is a reality that can be challenging within our church. This is when we start to say no. This is where we say no to things that we know can't be scaled up. We say no to things that aren't making disciples. We say no to things that used to work but just don't work anymore. And this is that sense of being optimistic, but also being just really honest with ourselves about what's fruitful and what's working, like what's making disciples. In our context, in North American church, one of the greatest challenges is that we've become very good at holding events and gathering people into rooms. We're good at that. We're less good at translating that into disciple making. And the challenge then is to be really honest with ourselves about at what point do we need to try a different approach? At what point do we need to let something go that may even have a little bit of energy in the room, but just isn't producing? Or perhaps something that's taking up more energy than it is producing. I remember back when I was in middle school, I did a report like we all did. I did it on the rainforest. And this whole idea about the rainforest creates all the oxygen for the atmosphere. That was the theory at the time. And the great crisis, the great global crisis, then every decade we have a new crisis, but then it was the rainforests, if you remember. I haven't heard about those because the crisis has been replaced by new ones, and for sure, rightly so. But I learned just recently, going back to look it up, that these rainforests use up all the oxygen they create. It's not where we get our oxygen from. Sometimes I worry that as a church, we do the same thing, that we create a lot of great things. All of it's good, but that we as a church end up consuming all of it. So one of the goals here with clearing the way is to cut out that dead wood that's using, but not actually producing. And so those programs that take a lot of our time, a lot of our energy, but aren't giving us the return, give ourselves permission to say no to that and create a culture in our church where they even drive and expect that, where they'll come to us and say, hey, pastor, I just don't think this is working the way we think it is. I think it's time to innovate. I think it's time to let that go. The more we can empower that and the more that we can cultivate that, the more free we're going to be to clear the way to try new things. Because this is exactly how it works in the organic world. When I grow tomatoes up here in Montana, and you cut off the branches that aren't bearing fruit to feed the ones that are, to make way for new growth. It's the same way in our churches. And then number 6, when we have this, when you have these other 5 keys in place, then number 6 starts to become possible, where we experiment fast, inexpensive, and before it's ready. And this goes contrary to everything that I learned as when I was in ministry. Everything that when I was an executive pastor, this was not what we were trying to do. It was get it perfect the first time, every time, for all time. It was you invest all the resources you need. You don't roll anything out before it's ready. The problem with innovation is that we don't actually know as much as we think we do. And we have to start really being ruthlessly honest that we're probably not going to succeed the first time we do something. There is a first time tax. Anytime you go to a new location, you take a wrong turn on the road. And it's not because you don't know what you're doing, it's because you've never been there before. And so we want to worry less about whether an experiment will succeed and more about what you will learn from its failure. Now, I don't want anything to fail. Don't get me wrong. That's built into like my personality and my life experience. But we want to ask ourselves, what lesson are we going to learn from this experiment? Everything we do today prepares us for tomorrow. Every ministry initiative, every event, every conversation, it's ministry right now, absolutely. But it's also learning opportunity for tomorrow. And so one of our questions is, hey, when we do this, what are we going to learn from this? What question will this answer for us about our success and our mission and our vision that will advance us and create more information so that we can be more successful next time? And so then when you're ready, scale up proven solutions and then repeat the whole process. And so once an idea is proven and refined, scale it up and roll it out. One of the things that I've learned from my trail running experience in life is that when I looked into training plans, they talk about training seasons. And there is this conversation around having a 3 or 6 month or a 9 month season where you're training, but then you have a 3 or 6 month period of time where you're in recovery. And that's just a real thing. As you scale up to 30, 60, 100 miles, you have to give your body a break. You have to have seasons of planning. And I think the same thing is true for our ministries. God's built it into the calendar. There are times when it's quiet, then there are times when it's more intense. Use those to your advantage to roll out new ideas, to roll out new solutions, and accept the reality that there's not really going to be a perfect thing. As soon as we get something that's fully optimized, the world is going to change and it's not going to be optimal anymore. And so this is part of the new skill set, the toolkit for visionary leaders who are strategic planning, is to be able to innovate quickly, cheaply, with rapid cycles of learning, and then scale up proven solutions and then repeat the whole process. And all along the way, experience the joy of how this is driving us to our knees, how this is causing us to depend on God, how we're seeing and sensing that humble submission in Christ's presence, and really feeling his leading all along the way. So I'm going to jump to a quick summary here, and I haven't seen a lot of questions so far in the chat, but invite you certainly to jump to that chat if you're ready. But I'm just going to review here. Here's those 7 questions. Do we agree on a shared future? Do we agree on where we are now? Are we trying to optimize or innovate? Are our ears to the ground? Are we saying no often enough? Is our value of excellence slowing us down? And are we rolling out unproven approaches? And then the summary of my key slide is frozen. Here we go. Key slide of the 7 keys. Plan from a clear and shared future. Create a shared clarity about the present. Calibrate progress. And order in your situation. Listen to God's people. Clear the way. Experiment fast, inexpensive, and before it's ready. And scale up proven solutions. So 7 questions and 7 keys. And as we've said, we have chat. The slides will be available. Bob will make those available after the end of the call, because there's 7 questions, 7 keys. So are there any questions for me to address before we unplug for the morning? Just go ahead and chat, throw them up in those chat box. All right, we've got one here. How do we build a culture that encourages innovation? Great question, David. And so when we think about the specific innovation side of strategic initiatives, I find that in the church culture, that the that the biggest problems that get in the way of innovation are excellence, a fear of failure, and a idea that we have to do it all by ourselves. And so what I would encourage with a culture of innovation is to really start fighting those things. And again, like team, I get it. I both have clients who are in really large contexts where excellence is really, really important. And I'm not trying to deconstruct that, but we have to create environments where failure isn't just accepted, it's expected. Where we say, hey, we need to try new things, and we're going to have 10 initiatives, and one of them is going to work. But we don't know which one it is. That's why we're trying. And so really give your team the sense that what we measure isn't if it succeeds, but it's what we learn from the failure. And so that's really key. And so we need to change our scorecard from this thing working to us learning from the thing. And so the more we can celebrate that, and the more we can really validate the learning and the attempt, the more that our team will start to march towards that innovation here. Okay, so I've got another question here. How do you get people who are too busy to take the time needed to do this? And so great question, Pastor Harry. So this gets back to a couple things. One is that we need to start saying no. If we're too busy, we need to say no more often. Really, truly innovative people, the people that I know in my life that are really, really innovative, they do some things that drive me nuts. So first of all, look at their emails. One guy I worked with is very innovative, had like 32,000 unread emails. I mean, like for me, that makes my soul just like shrivel up, right? But he's more innovative than me because he spends more time on it. He doesn't necessarily create order in his life. He's focused on progress. And so there is this sense of like, this is an excuse not to do something. But if we have folks who are too busy, let's actually sit down and talk about what we can all say no to. What can I free you up from? What can I say? Maybe you need to turn down the volume on that in your life. Another question from Charlie. Great. Another question from Charlie here is, we are highly driven by budget, which I think is needed, but it can become restrictive for innovation. How do you marry budget and innovation? Absolutely love it. One of the things that we suggest and advise is to create room in your budget for innovation. Actually budget for it. Create a space where folks can have access to, hey, well, I want to try something. Is there some money for that? So think about it as a percentage of your budget, as maybe 5 or 6%. That might sound high, but imagine if you have $1 million budget, if you had $50,000 or $60,000 every year that's unallocated at the beginning of the year, but teams know they have the opportunity to say, all right, team, I've got an idea. It'll cost us $10,000. Here's, I think, what we'll get from it. And as a team, kind of tackle that. And if you build that into your budget, what you'll find is that you'll start to fuel more innovation. Great. Do we celebrate failure as good effort? It is, absolutely one of the most demotivating things in the world is to just shred someone's work, is for someone to hand you their paper and you to put it in the shredder. People won't even take money for that. It's horrible. And so as our teams work hard to take on new ministry initiatives, we need to celebrate. And they're going out there and they're trying new things. They're the person in the ring who's actually doing the fight when it comes to innovation. And if it didn't work, the real win is like, what did we learn? We crossed one more thing off. We don't need to try that again. Whatever the thing is, like we can cross that off our list and move on. Or maybe there was an element to it that we realized, the thing that made this not work was a particular item, and that's the thing we need to get rid of. So absolutely celebrate failure for the learning and for the effort. Absolutely. Let's see, what is the best influence vision alignment when others don't want to let go of old vision tradition of how we've always done things? Absolutely. So that question reflects that we're still working on planning from a clear shared future. And so that's a great question, because that's again, it all comes back to that. If we're not agreeing on that shared future, we're not going to have strategic goals that are aligned. And so we need to excite and get our folks excited about this new clear vision of the future, and help them understand how the old vision isn't going to get us where God wants us to go. And so that's conversations, that's hearing, that's listening, but also casting that vision. And sometimes the best way to get people aligned is to really hear their concerns. And as they express those concerns, we may hear information that we didn't consider, and it may, in some cases, it may actually even update our approach. And that's all part of the process. That's in leadership circles, they call that transformational leadership. When leaders and followers inform each other and help each other move better together. So it doesn't mean that you're abdicating your leadership role. It means you're listening well, and you're able to process challenges. You're able to process like disagreements. Like, hey, we just disagree on this. Like that's a thing. Like, celebrate that you live in a culture where we can have that. Now, you still have to have a decision and move forward, but the more you can cultivate that, the more that you can experience that kind of shared alignment around a vision. And so so remember, leadership is directional influence. It's not just influence. It's directional influence. Leadership is influencing others to move in a direction together. I think about it as showing the way and inviting others to come along with you. That's what Christian leadership is I'm modeling the way of Jesus. I'm inviting others to come with us, and we're going here together. And so the more you can incarnate that, the more effective leader you can be from the top down and the bottom up.